Hi, third video in the series talking about the theory about intervals, the gaps between the notes. If you haven't seen either of the first two videos, then I'll put links to them in the information section on YouTube down there. And in this video, basically, I just want to sum up what we've looked at so far, and then wrap up looking at the theory behind intervals within an octave. Okay, so far what we've seen, we've started off looking at the intervals between the root note and the various degrees of the major scale, and then in the second video we looked at the names for the other intervals that weren't covered there, so like between the 1 and the flat 2, the 1 and the flat 3, the 1 and the flat 5, and so on. And we discovered that some of those intervals could have more than one name for them. Reason being, when you go, say, between the C note here and this note, we'll go up interval of 1 semitone, that note there, 1 semitone above C, you could call it C sharp, it's C raised by a semitone. But you could also think of it as being D lowered by a semitone. It's still an interval of 1 semitone, and it still sounds like that, but how we name it depends on the names of the notes involved. If it's C to C sharp, it's some kind of unison, because both note letters are the same, so we call it an augmented unison. If it's C to D flat, D some kind of second to C, so we'd call that a minor second. It's the major interval of C to D made a semitone smaller, so we'll call that a minor second. What we didn't do on that second video though was cover all the possibilities for all of the intervals within the octave. So just a quick reminder of what the rules are for like the naming convention. Okay, so those are the rules, and what I'm going to show you next is a couple of tables. It's basically one table split over two screens because it gets kind of big. Just showing you the possibilities for the different note combinations and the different intervals that you can get from 0 up to 12 semitones. Okay, the important thing to remember though is that the intervals sound the same, so whether you're going from C to C sharp or C to D flat, it's still that. So it's still got the sound of a minor second of an augmented unison. It's still got that sound. It's the sound of 1 semitone. Okay, so this is all a lot of theory. See, what's the point of knowing all this? How's it going to help you play? It's not so much to help you play in terms of being able to name the intervals, but the naming the intervals gives us a way that we can communicate with each other and talk about movement between notes, and we know what each other means. So if I say go up from C by an interval of a minor third, you know that the note you're going to go to, minor third, is 3 semitones, but you know that the note I'm talking about, the target note, is going to be an E flat, because it's some kind of a third interval. In this case it's a minor third, so it's a major third made a semitone smaller, so it's C to E flat. So this whole naming convention just gives us a standard way of being able to refer to intervals. From a playing point of view, far and away the most important thing is being able to recognise the sound of the intervals and being able to play them on the fingerboard. As we've said in the earlier videos, an interval of a major third between C and E has the same sound, the same feel as a major third between E and G sharp. It's still got that major third sound to it. That degree of resolution, as compared to say like a diminished fifth. It still has that distinctive sort of sound regardless of where you're starting from. And from a playing point of view, it's important to be able to know what those intervals sound like. So if somebody plays you a piece of music, you can hear the distance between the notes, and how the piece is going, it makes it easy to be able to transcribe it and work out, what it is that you're actually hearing, and translate what you're hearing onto the fingerboard, or onto written music. From a playing point of view as well, what's important is being able to know what the intervals sound like kind of ahead of the time that you're playing them. So if you're playing a piece of music, you're on a particular note, knowing how you want to move the piece forward. Now, a perfect fourth interval has a particular sound. So as you're rested on a note, you might say, well, I want to take this forward. I know what what will sound good would be a perfect fourth. And knowing how it sounds, and then knowing how to play it. So compositionally, it's a useful skill to have. So one last thing for reference here I'm going to give you is a couple of tables, just showing you where the intervals can be played on the neck. There's a certain geometry to them, so you don't have to learn a whole lot of different shapes for those intervals, as you'll see from the following two tables. Okay, so you can see from there that if you want to know how to play a major second, there's only one pattern of notes. That pattern there that you can take anywhere on the fingerboard, and you always get a major second. So pause that previous section as often as you want, and use that as reference. Actually, what I'll do, I've got a copy of that online, so in the info section on YouTube, I'll stick a link into that reference table, so you can use that. So one last thing that I want to talk about is inverting intervals. All the examples we've talked about so far have been ascending, with the exception of unison, which doesn't go anywhere. We've been talking about intervals going up, whether it's been a small interval like a minor second or a big interval like an octave. We've always been ascending. I'm talking about the number of semitones that would go up from the root note to the second note in the interval. So we measure, a perfect fourth is 5 semitones, a perfect fifth is 7 semitones, and so on. But what you need to be aware of is that the interval between two particular notes can vary depending on whether the second note is above or below the first note. So probably easiest to show you as an example. Starting off from C to G, it's a perfect fifth. We're going up 7 semitones. C to G. Now, I might be wanting to go from C down to a G. I can, there's a G here. So I can go C to G. But that's not 7 semitones. So in fact, it's only 5. So is that an interval of a perfect fourth? Well, yeah, it is, because you're going down 5 semitones. This is what's called inverting intervals. So for every interval that goes up, there's an inversion of it while going down. Okay. What I'm going to show you now is a table. Again, just for reference, feel free pause the video as often as you like on this one, or I'll put a link down there on the info section to tell you where you can get the charts just for reference. So that what this is showing you is the intervals that we've talked about within the octave, showing you them ascending. What's the descending version of them? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If you've been able to get your head around the idea of the theory behind the ascending intervals and the names that we use, the idea of inverting the interval and going down to a similar note name should make reasonable sense. But as always, the usual offer stands. If there's anything you're not sure about, there's the comment section on YouTube, or if you want to use the PhatPhish Facebook page, feel free to ask questions, or send me a private message or whatever, and I'll do my best to reply. And if you use something like the comment section on YouTube or the Facebook wall timeline, whatever they're calling it nowadays, it's probably better, because if there's other PhatPhish users on there, they can probably chip in with their words of wisdom as well, and you might get an answer a little bit quicker than if you were waiting for me. Okay, so that's the third video about intervals out of the way, and I think now we've done pretty much all I wanted to cover on the theory behind intervals and the naming convention for them, and so on, for intervals within the octave. We can take intervals beyond the octave, but I think that's a subject for another time. There's plenty for you to be looking at and thinking about in the meantime. In terms of as a guitarist, as a musician, one of the most useful skills you can have is a well-trained ear. The ability to be able to hear an interval being played and to recognise it. So if you hear me playing that, to recognise it for what it is. It's an interval of 4 semitones. It's an interval of a major third. So it's well worth taking the time to practice that. Practice that skill, just getting yourself used to, what intervals sound like. Each one has its own distinctive sound, its own distinctive sort of colour. It's an amount of consonance or dissonance, how resolved it sounds. And if you can get your ear tuned into that, it's a really useful thing. Okay, so there's plenty there for you to be getting on with. Thanks for watching. I hope you find these videos useful. Grateful for any feedback, comments, suggestions, whatever, through the usual channels. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video, hopefully sometime soon. Bye for now.